The guy tells the hero that the kid finally hit 15 today, and the hero just nods, giving him props for growing up. The hero says thanks and starts to mention the big things coming next, but Otto von Edverall, the Marquis of the Borderlands, cuts him off to ask what he means while swiping a bottle from the guard. He declared that the hero was dying today and forced him to drink poison, even though Ron von Edward was just a 15-year-old kid. Deep in the pitch-black dungeon, someone was slowly creeping closer. The guard gave Mr. Felix a big, friendly welcome and asked how the hero was holding up. Then he told him everything was going down exactly how Mr. Lyra planned. This guy reveals that his little brother, Ron von Edward, was actually poisoned and died. The guy slammed his foot into the hero's face and screamed at the guards to stop calling him Lord, because this loser doesn't belong to the Edward family. Rewind to just an hour ago at Marquis Edverall's huge estate in Mariella County, deep in the Yugdian Kingdom's Ill region. We see a creepy dark basement with a massive iron cage sitting right in the middle. Our hero took one look at that jug and realized this was probably where he was gonna die. This really ticked him off since he's 15 and has never even been on a single date. The hero poured the wine and then secretly slipped some poison into the cup. He barked the order one more time, telling him to drink it and die, and while he couldn't wrap his head around how things got this messed up, he knew deep down his fate was, in this world, nobles only care about your bloodline and magic, so since his mom was just a servant who had a secret kid with the Marquis, he was treated like a total mistake from the moment he was born. He's got an older brother and sister from the main wife who inherited totally pure blood. On top of that, both of them were born with insane magic powers. They had everything Things were looking way different for our hero, so he asked the magic inspector about the rules, only to find out this was actually a test to measure his powers, and he was up next. He explains that there are 2 ways to tell if you've got magic, starting with a sign from the gods. If you're a natural with fire, wind, water, or earth, our hero was missing the mark, but the inspector explained that only the chosen ones actually get those, so he'd have to take the standard test like everyone else. Even though, he told the hero to put his hand over a candle flame, saying if he didn't feel the heat, he was born for fire magic, and the hero did exactly that. The hero starts screaming because the heat is getting insane, but the guy tells him to chill since fire just isn't his thing. He explains that this is how they test everyone's. He finally told Ron he couldn't use any of the 4 elements, so the guy shoved him hard and he slammed right onto the floor. This rich kid called Ron a total nobody, and told him he wasn't even a real member of the Edwards family. He shouted back that the hero wasn't even allowed to sit at their table, while the rest of the family just sat there eating dinner and talking trash about how embarrassing it was for a noble to. This woman actually admitted she feels sick just eating in the same room as our hero. He was born as a total mistake with absolutely nowhere to belong. They kept him locked inside and never told a single soul. It's like this person doesn't even exist. They didn't finish him off, and he thought his dad was just being nice, hoping he'd finally be accepted as one of them one day. For 15 whole years, hope was the only thing keeping him going. He just kept taking it, pushing through all the hate and disgust everyone threw his way. Ron didn't say a word. He just kept his eyes locked on the poison inside the glass. He remembered how heartless his dad really was, because even as a powerful marquis, he couldn't just kill his own secret son without it being a total disgrace. So he just waited for the kid to grow up and give up his noble life on his own. They kept him locked up like an animal for 15 years just to save their family's pride. Just thinking about it made him totally break down in tears. E cursed in total rage, his hands shaking like crazy as he gripped the cup tight. The kid grabs the cup and takes a quick sip. After slamming back every last drop, he sat down at the table and just waited patiently. He stared at his hands, totally confused why he felt fine. Then he just started laughing and realized it wasn't even poison. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain ripped through his whole body, and he collapsed, slamming the bottles off the table on his way down. He's gasping for air and staring at the floor in total pain, his whole body feeling like it's literally on fire. He started scratching like a maniac and screaming that his back was on fire, totally losing it because he had no idea what was going on. He looks to the side and suddenly spots something super weird in the mirror. As he stared at his glowing back, a voice suddenly told him he'd mastered poison magic and the neutralization was starting right now. A voice shouts that the neutralization is done and he can finally use the poison, But the hero is totally lost and flashes back to when his brother Felix got that magic mark. He wondered if he was actually serious. Then suddenly, he just ripped his clothes off without even thinking twice. He looked in the mirror and saw this crazy glowing dragon mark right on his back. He stared in total shock as it finally hit him. That was a straight-up magical sign. He had no idea how this thing ended up on his skin, or what kind of deadly poison magic was attacking him. He remembered the advice that you have to actually feel magic to master it, but the law says he can't show anyone he's got powers beyond the basic 4 elements. He finally realized everything was just air-powered tech, which is why he never knew he was special until he accidentally swallowed poison and found out he was totally immune. He laughed and said his dad chose poison over fire or a bullet, and he's actually super thankful for that because it means his story isn't over yet. But there was a huge catch because our guy had no idea how to get out. And with time running out, he knew the guards could burst in to check on him at any moment, and even if, he realized that if he got caught, the whole Edward family would hunt him down, and since they're all total magic geniuses, he'd be completely toast. He knew right away that if they fought, he'd be dead in a second, because even with his poison magic, he could only wear them down slowly and had no chance in a direct face-off. Our hero was right on the edge of quitting, feeling like nothing he did mattered, and there was absolutely no way out of that trap. He kept telling himself he had to run while feeling totally useless, but then he finally figured out the only way to actually get out of there. Since sneaking out was a bust, he decided to just walk right out the front door, even though he had no clue if it would work. It was his only shot. Right then, our hero was just lying there on the ground, not moving a single muscle. He slammed his boot onto the guy's face, thinking he was just faking a poisoned death to escape, but he totally misread what was actually going on. Felix von Ed Varl, the head of the family, bragged that the gross bloodline ruining their name was finally gone for good. He stares at Ron's body in total silence, just waiting for something crazy to happen at any second. He clicked his tongue, totally annoyed that the hero looked so peaceful after dying in pain, and he even started to wonder if the guy was actually dead or just faking it. Felix fired off his blade pistol water magic and shredded the hero into pieces in the blink of an eye. Magic totally swallowed him up, and blood just kept dripping off Ron while he lay there completely still. Felix kept watching, but when nothing changed, it finally hit him that he was actually dead. After he finally chilled out, he ordered the soldiers to just dump his body and his mom's ashes in a regular graveyard, and they did exactly that without saying a word. The soldiers hauled Ron up from the ground as blood dripped right off his arm. Felix stopped them right there because the floor was getting messy, snapping that he wasn't about to let a bloody body ruin the whole house, so even though it totally grossed him out, he'd have to take care of the guy himself. As the soldiers pinned him down, Felix slowly started to get his strength back. Suddenly, all the blood on the hero's hands just vanished, and every tiny scar healed up, so Felix ordered them to drag him even further away. He shut his eyes and said it was time to get back to work, because being the next head of the family is seriously tough. The soldiers finally reached the graveyard and slammed the bag onto the dirt, grumbling about the long walk from the wagon before deciding to just leave it there for now. Another guy said he didn't expect anyone to show up for a goodbye, but that's just how the rules go. They decided to bail because it was getting way too dark and creepy, figuring they'd just come back in a few days to bury him. One of them brought up the reward Felix promised, suggesting, the moment the guards backed off, he sliced the bag open and peeked through the hole to see what was inside. He looks up and sees this super dark, creepy cemetery. He scrambled out of the bag and let out a huge sigh, totally relieved that he was finally safe. He looked down at his hand, remembered his choice, and started unleashing his magic. Since there was no way out, the hero left the estate wide open and straight up swallowed the poison to let it start kicking in. He wasn't sure if it would work, but he actually managed to make himself look like he was totally dead. Our hero pulled off his big escape from the mansion just like he planned, and the best part is that his mom actually made it out with him. After making a cross for his mom, he sat down to pray, just glad he escaped that mansion in one piece. But he knew he had to figure out how that poison magic worked if he wanted. Staying here is a total death trap because if they find out he's still breathing, they're coming to finish the job. First, he's got to escape Lyra's land where our hero was 100% sure he'd make it, so he said goodbye to his mom and headed straight south, knowing there was no turning back now. He's got to master poison magic right under the Marquis's nose before he can finally head out to Estasia. Somewhere else, a maid holding a knife tells Marie von Estasia she's about to die and raises the blade to strike. She let out a terrified scream, begging him to just stop. Our hero stared down that paralyzing mushroom, wondering if taking a bite would kill him on the spot. The second the system confirmed the poison was gone, he just dropped dead on the spot. Just like he hoped, the second the poison hit his system, a notification pinged in his head. Since his body was neutralizing the toxins, the system was actually unlocking poison magic for him, so now he just had to wait for the process to finish. This massive monster came stalking out of the woods right at our hero, showing off its terrifyingly sharp teeth. Our hero is totally panicking because his body is frozen solid and he can't even twitch a finger. He's kicking himself for being so reckless, and even though he's trying to snap, right before that monster could tear him apart, it just dropped dead right next to him. Wait, let's look at the original again. Strike him with its sharp fee. The monster finally dropped dead, its shredded mouth landing right next to a super poisonous mushroom. Out of nowhere, another beast creeps out of the dark and starts tearing into the poisoned creature, while the hero just watches the whole nightmare in total silence. He was totally terrified when a bloody snake appeared, with its right head spitting paralyzing venom, while the left one started sucking the blood right out of its victim. The counter effect finally wore off, and that paralyzing poison kicked back in, so the hero jumped to his feet and scrambled away. Our hero stares at the only poison that can actually take down Vanda the wolf. He looks into the future and knows he's definitely gonna need this deadly stuff. He decides he has to grab. He wondered if that new paralyzing poison he just mastered could actually freeze the snake in its tracks while he ducked away to safety. Standing right on the edge, he realized running wasn't an option anymore, and it was finally time to make his move. He dove straight into the fight, carrying a poison that freezes his enemies in their tracks. Fast forward a little while. In the capital city of Kranoff, the girl at the desk tells him it costs 1 silver coin to register as an adventurer, so he pays up and she asks to see his nameplate. She stared him down and asked if his name was really ruined, and once she finally believed him and gave the plaque back, he realized he couldn't even use a fake name to hide. He was stoked that only his name was on the list because nobody would ever guess he's an Ed Warhol, especially since Round is such a common name there. When the girl asked what class he wanted, he told her he was going to be a ranger who specializes in using all kinds of poisons. She was totally stunned since this almost never happens, and while he was questioning if it was even real, he knew he had to keep his poison magic a secret to avoid looking super suspicious. She says it's the perfect time to make some serious bank since the price of poison herbs and antidotes is through the roof, and they'll pay a fortune for the rare stuff you can't even find in the duchy. He was totally caught off guard and asked why, but she didn't explain anything, just saying it was a completely different story, and he realized right then that she definitely didn't want to talk about it. She wished him luck on his big adventure, but as Ron headed out, he worried that getting too famous would just be a total headache later on. He knew that if anyone from Ed Warhol's crew suddenly jumped him, he'd need a killer poison to stand a chance, so he started low-key collecting every deadly toxin he could find. 2 guys were gossiping, and one bragged that the Dutch woman was a total jackpot since he traded poison for easy cash. Our hero finally realized why the receptionist was acting so sketchy, so the guy asked how he could help, so the hero flashed a coin and asked him to spill everything he knew about poisons. Somewhere else, a guy yells for the next person, but he's blocked by a soldier named Land and a doctor's apprentice named Fall. Land tells him to beat it because Lend was totally fed up with all these fakes, but when Nike mentioned there was one last person waiting, Lend just told him to bring her in. He was super annoyed since they'd already rejected over 100 people and figured they'd have to look somewhere else, but Fall pointed out that there weren't any real healers left in their entire land who could actually help. Knight insisted they needed a real legend for this, but the doctor said it would take a month for a pro from another country to arrive, making Knight wonder if the princess could even hang on that long. He found out the last guy was a poison expert named Ronde, who just hit town, but Fall just shrugged it off, thinking he'd probably just show up with some weak herbal medicine. Ron walks right up to the group to say what's up. Lend told him to stop yapping and get to the point. How could he help? This was his big chance to finally be a hero. He heard from a traveler that the Duke's daughter, after escaping the Edwards place, our hero knew he needed some serious backup, so he figured if he could just heal the Duke's daughter, he'd win a powerful ally. But he had to be extra careful not to mess it up. Back in the hero city, he's holding a secret so toxic it could destroy him if the wrong people find out. But if he can just save the Duke's daughter, Lend figured the hero was just being cheap, but the guy was actually a total fake. So Len told him he couldn't promise anything except that a parent's love is always the same. And that was all the hero needed to hear before asking for someone. A guy is rolling on the ground in total agony, and Land is completely lost because he was totally fine a second ago, while Fall swears the hero did something even if he couldn't. Lend looked at the dying man and asked Ron what his real game was, ready to buy the poison if that's what it took. But Ron just kept insisting that all he wanted. The knight shut him down instantly, saying there was no way. After that dirty trick, he wasn't letting this guy anywhere near the princess. But the stranger claimed he could prove he had the power. The knight saw the hero acting like a total big shot again and told him to quit stalling and show his real power, which finally made the hero get serious. The hero spins around, and everyone's eyes go wide when they see a massive dragon mark right on his back. Lan can tell these aren't just random bandits by the way The hero leaned over and used his magic to cure the poison that was sucking all the strength out of him. Lend let out a huge shout the second he saw that dragon finally start to move. The guy jumped up and shouted that he was saved, since he totally thought he was a goner. He let out a shaky laugh, still in shock that he actually made it out alive. Sitting right there was the Duke of Estasia, and he swore he'd actually seen the legendary dragon version of the magical mark with his own 2 eyes. He'd heard rumors about the hero's insane poison powers and wanted the full scoop, so the hero explained he can control any toxin he's ever swallowed and even neutralize the ones he's already mastered. Fatten explains that the knife is still covered in the same poison that hit Marie, and he asks if the hero can save her if he takes the toxin into his own body. But the guy hesitated for a second, but since the other healers looked totally sketchy, he basically had no choice but to double-check if the hero really just wanted his house protected in exchange. Ron had some serious guts and just straight up asked who he really was. The Count finally figured out that Ron's system wasn't even magical, and that he was actually part of Marquis Edward's family. So he was basically asking them to risk it all by picking AE. The hero turned him down, saying he'd bail from the country the second he got his strength back so he wouldn't cause any drama, since a quick place to crash was all he really needed. The guy went quiet to think, and our hero started panicking, knowing that one wrong answer meant getting kicked out of Edvara's house instantly. They locked eyes, and it hit him. He could actually be executed because his poison magic was way too dangerous. The man agreed to help, so he begs him to save his daughter Kure Marie, knowing he's the only one who can actually pull it off. Ron flashed a grin and promised he was going to give it everything he had. A bit later, Rondi checks out the knife used on Mrs. Mari, and even though the poison is dry, it's still super deadly, so he tells everyone he's going to test it on himself and just asks to be carried to bed once he passes out. The deer told him not to sweat it because everything was already set up, including a private guest room where he could finally get some rest. Ron remembered that impossible poison nobody could survive, thinking back to the total agony he felt when he mastered the deadly blood snake venom. Ron had no clue how much poison his body could actually take, so messing with this stuff was a massive gamble. If the toxin on that blade was way deadlier than usual, he'd be a goner before he could even try to neutralize it. But if he backed out now, he could kiss his dreams of a happy future goodbye. Felix, a hero from the Edward family, finally showed up here to find the freedom he's been chasing forever. The hero licks the edge of his sword, and the ground beneath him starts groaning in pain. He was totally stuck watching the hero drop to his knees, while the system pinged that the poison was finally being wiped out. Our hero's mouth flew wide open as he let out a silent scream of pure pain. Lend asked if Rondi was all right, and he forced himself to say he was fine, but even with the numbing meds, he was still hurting like crazy. He hit the ground as an even stronger wave of pain slammed into him, rolling around and smashing everything to pieces. He snatched a jagged piece of the vase with his bare hand, and the sharp edge sliced right into his skin until he started bleeding. He shut his eyes as the earth itself called out to him, and once the poison finally finished clearing, his marriage skill kicked in, letting him see exactly what was going on with the target. Our hero finally mastered poison magic, even using it to heal people, and now that he's got full control, he looked at his hands and realized the poison meant for the Duke's daughter. Our hero finds out this poison belongs to a rare dragon that only shows up every few years, a beast so deadly that no one has ever beaten it. And even though one tiny mistake with its venom usually means game over, he actually managed to survive. He finally got out of bed with his body still shaking, but seeing himself in totally different clothes made him wonder just how long he'd actually been out. Lend walked into the room to find Ron finally awake, and he immediately blurted out that they had to go find that lady right this second. Our hero meets up with the Duke only to find out he's been out cold for 3 whole days, so he apologizes and admits that the poison was way more intense than he expected. When they asked if the hero could handle the poison, the Duke just said it wouldn't even slow him down. They stopped right at Maria's door, and the Duke told the hero that the poisoner was their absolute last hope, begging him to do whatever it takes. Our hero shot back that he's 100% sure he's gonna pull off something epic. They snuck inside and slowly crept up to the princess's bed. The Duke grabbed the guardian's hand and told her to hang in there just a bit longer. Then he turned to the hero and said he was really counting on him. The Duke warned them that if anyone acts even a little bit shady, he's gonna blast them with magic right away. The hero promised he'd never forget this. Then he said sorry, and stepped out from behind the Duke to face Marie. There's a young girl just lying there on the bed. A status window suddenly popped up right in front of the girl. It showed her name, the eagle emblem, and her wind magic. But looking at her health, she was actually suffering from. The hero was blown away by her stats and figured she had some kind of dragon poison ability. And while he noticed an orange glow trying to keep her alive with slow healing magic, it was obvious he reaches out his hand, refusing to let her die, because even though that purple dragon poison is supposed to be an incurable death sentence that only green dragon venom can fix, he's about to. The hero drops a spell, and the poison starts rushing through his body like a river, leaving the Duke totally frozen as he stares at the glow. The hero touched her hand and let his magic flow right into her. He used his counter magic to totally cancel out the dragon's poison. Our guy hits the ground, realizing that just one move wiped out over half his mana. If he pushes it any harder, he's going to completely run out of juice. But running away isn't an option. He refuses to lose, so he bets everything he's got to save her. The hero dumps every last drop of his magic into her until she finally starts waking up, and the Duke starts freaking out as he calls for his daughter. Creepy dark magic was spinning like crazy all over the bedroom. Everything finally went dead silent and all that magic just vanished into thin air. The Duke watched in total shock as the hero struggled to catch his breath, wondering just how much he had left in the tank. He checked his stats and saw his health hit 17, with his status officially marked as excellent. Our hero flashed a huge smile because he actually managed to heal her, and just as the Duke rushed over, his daughter finally opened her eyes. She called her dad, and he was super hyped that everything finally worked out. The hero watched from the shadows before quietly heading out, and a bit later, the Duke thanked Ron again and announced he'd be staying in the duchy as an official guest of honor. The hero gives his thanks, and now he's being treated like a total VIP, staying there like some legendary warrior or sage. The Duke explains that they need to keep everything out in the open. The Duke knew things were complicated, so he told the hero he'd only treat him like a VIP if he promised to let Ron live a totally free and peaceful life. But there's one big catch. The Duke put him in charge of finding the people who tried to kill Marie, and since he's a VIP, he can go anywhere he wants to track them down. Final check. Finishing the conversation, Rond walked down the corridor, muttering that it's always easy to talk like that. Arrow Rond finished up and headed down the hall. The hero promised Mari he'd get way stronger just to keep her safe, and she just laughed, saying she couldn't wait to see him do it. The squad finally reached the new spot. Their jaws dropped because the Este family's villa was insanely fancy. Mary said it was finally time to start their magic training. She pointed out an awesome spot. They finally made it to the spot, and it was the perfect place to train since no one was around to watch. The girl was dying to see his magic, and he was totally down to. He reaches out his hand and summons that deadly poison. He summoned a glowing orb in the air and dumped every bit of his magic into it. Out of nowhere, this massive black ball just popped up right in front of him. He He called out a poisonous magic dragon and an explosive one, then sent them crashing straight into the tree. One massive hit sends the tree snapping and crashing straight to the ground. She says this power is totally insane because it's not just a huge magic blast. It actually wipes out all the poison nearby too, making it way too dangerous to mess with inside the mansion. She poked the toxic slime with a stick and realized it was melting everything, which would have totally wrecked the mansion's floor, so the hero promised to switch up the poison type. She gave him the green light to do whatever he wanted, so he immediately made a brand new bullet that looked nothing like the old one. He was totally locked in and 100% in the zone. She thought back to the day they met and her promise to get strong enough to protect him, which put a huge smile on her face. He turned and asked what was up, leaving her totally stunned as she realized he'd already fired off 10 spells that were still active, and he just casually told her he could keep going all day. He says the strong poisons drain way too much energy, so he's sticking to the weak stuff for now, and she's super curious to find out what they are. Mari says 10 fireballs usually drains a person dry, but this guy just smirks and tells her his magic tank is basically bottomless. Thinking about his magic power, Ron remembered how his brother Felix used to train like crazy and get all the hype when they were kids. Back then, he spent every single day wishing he was just as talented as his brother. Mira asks what the world's deadliest poison would do, but the boy admits he hasn't tried it yet, so he has no clue. He asks if he can give it a shot himself. She gave him the green light, and he started firing off spells right away. He locked in and realized he was a totally different person now. Now he's finally got his hands on the deadliest poison ever, dragon venom magic. He tapped into his dragon poison magic and unleashed a crazy spell called Purple Dragon. The kid gives the word, and his dragon spell blasts straight at the target. That dark fog stretched out for miles, creeping further and further into the heart of the forest. Both of them just froze on the spot, completely shocked by what they were looking at. He looked her in the eyes and promised he'd never lose a fight, and she just smiled back, saying she felt totally unstoppable with him by her side. He headed deeper into the woods to soak up that toxic magic, but when he asked to go off on his own, she warned him that the further he got from the villa, the more likely he'd run into some nasty monsters. Check. He recalled Mari's words that he could defeat anyone, but it turned out to be much more complicated. Arrow. He remembered Mari telling him he could take on anyone, but he realized that if someone spent a fortune on a hitman, he was dealing with a serious threat, and if the Edvarl servants caught him and forced a fight with the siblings, Our guy finally realized he had to push his powers to the limit and actually learn how to control them. He definitely needs some practice, and right then, 3 goblins jump out with their health bars totally full. Our hero instantly fires a weak poison bullet that hits the guy dead on, and he watches closely to see how he'll react. He took out all 3, but a quick look at his stats showed he lost 9 HP and was officially poisoned. A dead goblin drops right in front of our hero. He realizes the poison is ticking away his life, losing 1 health point every single second until he's toast. But before he can, he fires a special poison bullet at the target, and while their health actually drops, the poison effect never kicks in. He smacks the goblin again and realizes the bullet always deals damage, but the poison is just a random bonus that doesn't trigger every single time. Picking out his next target, the hero decides it's time to test out a brand new paralyzing poison. He chucks a ball of the potion straight at the monster. It hits instantly. He figured this was just another random effect and quickly spawned a fresh bullet right in his hand. Our guy grabs the goblin's head and hits it with a lethal dose of poison, dropping it instantly, and that's when it clicks. There are really only 2 ways to poison. The hero saw that the shooter's long-range hits have unpredictable poison, but if you get close and touch it, the effect is guaranteed and way more lethal. The hero got the chills when he heard Madame Marie scream, and right nearby in the clearing, the local knights were already clashing with the bandits. A few mercenaries in black gear just wiped the floor with those soldiers like it was nothing. One of them lunges straight for Mari, and she completely freezes up, just staring in total shock as she can't even move a muscle. She remembered how that doppelganger almost ended her and let out a scream of pure terror. Out of nowhere, the hero pops up and blasts his poison dragon magic, sending a massive, smoky black dragon head right into the bandit's face. A giant mouth snapped shut around the mercenary and dragged him off, while the hero stood right in front of Mari screaming her name as the dragons clamped their jaws onto the bandits and flew them high into the air. The hero yells at the top of his lungs that he'll protect her, and she's just staring in awe while the villains start screaming because they know they're finished. The dragons dove straight down and slammed into the dirt with a massive roar. 3 of the attackers were wiped out the second they hit, leaving their bodies totally shredded on the ground from the massive impact. She was shaking like crazy, so he put a hand on her shoulder to help her chill out. He dropped to one knee and promised her that everything was going to be fine because he was definitely going to keep her safe. She called out to him, realizing he'd saved her life again and left her with a debt she could never pay back. But standing by his side made her feel totally safe as she gave Rhonda a... Once he reached the Duke's territory, he found out the attackers were named Dansur and Tensir and figured they were actually the Connie brothers. The hero asks if he's famous, and the guy just smirks, telling him that every hitman in the world definitely knows his name. He said these guys are total monsters who'd hurt anyone. They're basically invisible, and if Ron hadn't stepped up, it would have been game over for everyone. The guy was relieved to be safe, but he knew that if someone could hire these 3, the list of suspects was getting really small, while our hero just said he was happy to help out. The Duke told Ron he still owed him big time, even if Ron decided to quit being a guest and leave. He promised to hook him up with enough cash to last for years, and when Ron double-checked the deal, the Duke told him not to worry because he was totally serious. The Duke's scouts checked the area and found 0 signs of anyone following them or Edward's family even looking for them. He said everyone back at the mansion is totally convinced the hero was poisoned, so if he just keeps quiet, he's completely off the hook. Our hero was stoked to finally stop looking over his shoulder and feel what it's like to be totally free. But our hero couldn't stop worrying. What would happen to Marie if he just walked out now? The Duke immediately told him he could stay as long as he wanted. To be real, after that crazy attack by the Connie brothers, the Duke decided Marie needed more backup, so he hired a female knight named Amanda to help protect her, and our hero was totally blown away. The Duke admits she's a total powerhouse and one of the top 3 strongest in the Knight Order, so even though she's super strict, she'll definitely be a great match for the hero. Suddenly, his eyes shot open and he barely leaped back just as the ground beneath him completely shattered. The hero took a massive hit and went stumbling to the ground, and as the girl stood over him, she mocked his big talk and asked if that was really how he planned to protect the lady. That night, Sia Amanda Magnaria screamed that if he really wanted to protect Mari, he'd have to kill her. Wiping his face, our hero was shaking because he almost killed a guard who once saved him, but the Duke just bragged about his crew while a new girl stepped up, announcing she was now Madame Marie's official bodyguard. Amanda asks if his name is really Ron and not Borkad, and after he says yes, Anne mentions the Duke teamed them up to protect Madame Marie, though she's still curious why he was missing when the Connie brothers attacked the villa. The kid told them they were at the villa to practice magic, but he really wanted to test a new spell, so he headed straight into monster territory. Amanda called Rond out for putting his magic training before Mrs. Mari's life, but he shut that down, saying it was just way too risky to drag her into a danger zone in a cart. She screamed that she got attacked while he was totally clueless, and even though he admitted he messed up because he was just a guest, Amanda yelled back that she didn't care about his title. She reminded him about his promise to keep Mari safe, and he knew right then she was telling the 100% truth. The knight says real protection means being ready to die for someone, and he asks Fronda if she's actually got what it takes. He didn't say a word as she told him that the scariest thing on a mission is a partner who isn't serious, so she's going to test his skills and his heart right now to see if he's actually worthy of protecting the lady. She dropped into a fighting stance and let her magic fly. Draft. She totally stunned everyone with a massive blast of fire magic. The hero was shook to find out she could actually cast spells. He knew right away that if that hit him, he was toast. A shell exploded right next to him, and the massive blast sent him flying forward. She watched the smoke swirl from the blast and told him that in the Night Order's training grounds, heroes don't hold back, right as a blinding light suddenly cut through the fog. A poison bullet flies out of the smoky club right at her, but she manages to shield her staff with a spell just in time. She slammed her staff into the sphere and smashed it to pieces, leaving the hero totally stunned as his magic just vanished, while the girl rushed over to ask what the heck just happened. She hit the floor and immediately started asking what was going on, but she suddenly froze when she spotted something totally weird off to the side. She spotted the hero and immediately hit him, claiming he was still too weak to fight until the guy just flew away. She screamed that it wasn't enough, totally losing it because he just wouldn't quit, when suddenly something slammed right into her. She dropped to her knees, completely broken, and asked him what he had just done. The kid says he pumped poison straight into her, and he actually touched her hand right before he attacked. Ron reveals she's been hit with a deadly poison and only has 50 seconds left to live. The girl finally figured out how this toxic magic actually worked. The hero told her she'd done enough and that he could handle the cure from here, but she didn't beg for her life. She showed off the stone in her hand and squeezed it hard, making it glow like crazy. Ron recognized that legendary healing stone instantly, and he couldn't believe he was finally seeing one in person while the girl was already getting back on her feet. His health is back and the poison is totally gone, leaving our hero shocked that this magic stone heals him and gives him a massive power boost. He starts wondering how much a gem like that would. The hero gets back up, but right then, a voice from the side asks what they're even doing there, making them both snap their heads toward the sound. It was Miss Mira, and Rhonda was shocked she was already standing. But she told him her legs were fine since they had much bigger problems to deal with. She totally lost it and yelled at her guards for fighting, but Amanda explained they were just testing Rhonda's guts, while Mira told them to just shake hands and be friends. They were both super on edge and staring each other down with blank faces, but they still reached out and shook hands. She hyped them up and asked if they should all move in together, and as soon as they both said yes, she told them her dad wanted to have a talk. She says the Duke already knows exactly who tried to take her out. Back at the Duke's mansion, a messenger arrived with huge news. They finally figured out who was behind the hit on Marie. Amanda asked if it was for real and who would even dare to touch her lady. But the guy told her that while the actual attacker was still a mystery, they already knew exactly who was pulling the strings. The Duke recognizes the name Greenwich and prays this isn't just a sick joke. But while Amanda is totally confused, Ron explains that picking a fight with the Duke's family is a massive mistake that could literally rip the entire kingdom in half. The guy stopped and said he might be in danger from the poison too, but he didn't care about himself. He just wanted them to make sure Maria stayed safe if anything went wrong. Mar tells her dad to stop talking like that, and when the hero asks what's up, the Duke explains that Yugdi is in the middle of a massive power struggle, where he and Greenwich are clashing over how to reach the same goal. Our hero asked how he was so sure the Greenwich house was behind it, and the guy revealed that their undercover spies had already leaked the truth. The guy pulls out a weapon and explains that the knife used on Mari is totally different, since these aren't even made in Estasia and only show up on the black markets in the Greenwich. Marie finally got the picture, and Hare promised he'd protect her no matter how crazy things got. Amanda shouted that they needed serious guts for this, swearing she'd handle everything and keep Mrs. Marie safe even if she died. But the others just gave her some majorly annoyed looks. The Duke told them he's counting on their teamwork to throw a huge party next week to celebrate Marie finally getting better. He's expecting a massive crowd for the big party and wants everything to go perfectly, but he's still warning everyone to stay on high alert. It's finally the day of the big party, and our hero is wandering through town, stressing over which gift to pick. He remembered Amanda totally blowing up at him for showing up empty-handed to the ladies' recovery party. But he just made the excuse that guarding Marie left him zero time to go shopping. Azia, everyone has to bring a gift because the lady is always hyped to see what she gets. Wait, the prompt says, rewrite the following line. Singular. The hero totally backs down when she speaks up, so Amanda lets out a huge sigh and tells him one guard is plenty for the squad and he needs to find a different plan for now. Our hero wandered through the city wondering what he could actually give the guy. But he was super annoyed by the hat he borrowed from Landa because it just made his weird outfit stand out even more. Our hero realized he couldn't touch those rich nobles when it came to money or good looks. So what's his big move going to be? Right nearby, our hero spots a merchant selling a gamble for magic stones at just 1 silver coin. So he decides to hang back and spy to see what's really going on. This mysterious guy asks the shop owner if any of these rocks are actually poisoned dragon stones. Our hero is totally shocked that someone would even ask for something that dangerous. The merchant just shrugs and says, he explained there were 2 reasons they were ignored. Either everyone just missed them, or they didn't have enough magic to actually make them work. The merchant thinks this item is packed with insane magic that modern tech can't even track, And if he picks the second option, he'll score S-rank powers that only the best mages have, turning that poison dragon from a myth into a real-life nightmare. Our hero couldn't stop thinking about those magic stones, so he asked the old man if anyone had ever actually pulled a super lucky one. The guy says snitching on customers is a one-way ticket to going broke, so he's not saying a word, making the stranger realize this is basically a rigged lottery he can't win. Ron told them to come pick any stone they wanted, so the boy decided to gamble on the box in the very back since he knew he couldn't win with money or looks. He starts digging through the box when a weirdly nice warmth hits his back, like a sign telling him that the item in his hand is the one. He grabbed the black stone and told the merchant he wanted it, so the guy told him the price was 1 silver coin. The stranger asks why he'd pick such a gross rock over the shiny ones, but the hero explains that since it was shoved way back in the corner, that's probably exactly where the treasure is hiding. Our hero saw how lonely the guy looked and felt a total connection to him, so he quickly apologized, said he was in a rush, and took off. This mysterious guy was totally obsessed with the darkness because he thought it looked amazing. A bit later in the alley, the stranger held a stone and promised the owner that he wasn't the one who caused all that trouble. Sitting on the guy's body, he realized this dude was the type to go totally crazy the moment he saw something truly beautiful. As the night wrapped up, Mirror thanked the massive crowd that showed up to celebrate her recovery, but Yoru was low-key stressed that one of Ed Warhol's people might be hiding in. He was sure he made the right call using a servant's mask to keep her safe in secret. Watching the guests pile gifts on Marie, he realized a servant couldn't just hang out next to. Mari's aunt came over to check on her, and seeing her totally back to normal made our hero so happy he couldn't look away from her glowing smile. He snapped back to reality, remembering he had to look busy so no one would get suspicious. But then a random guy suddenly blocked his path. He tried to apologize, but the stranger just started acting like. The guy asks if the hero is actually watching over Mari, but before the hero can even say no, the dude snaps, yelling that a nobody who almost bumped into him and likes Mari deserves to die 1,000 times. He said it's a party night and he's too buzzed to cause any trouble, so the hero should be grateful. The hero thanked him to be polite, but he was still totally weirded out and had no clue what this guy's deal was. The young noble realized he'd come way too far to let one dumb mistake ruin everything he'd worked for. He walks right up to Mari in the crowd and says it's been way too long, and she confirms she's the one who called him, calling him Randy. As the room slowly emptied out, our hero noticed that everything had gone perfectly without any crazy surprises. He spotted a girl nearby who was totally unharmed, and after a huge sigh of relief, he stepped out onto the balcony to make sure she was okay. She promised she was totally okay and figured Ron was probably just exhausted from always having to protect her and do everything for her. She thanked him for the invite, saying she and Amanda only made it to this epic party because of him. Then she asked if he remembered Ron Randy from the crowd. He said he totally remembered the guy and asked if they were actually close friends. She says he's her fiancé, but he's been acting so cold lately that she's starting to think she'll end up marrying someone else entirely. Our hero didn't even understand why, but he felt a massive wave of relief knowing his fiancé could actually change, especially since noble marriages are usually a total trap. Thinking back on Randy's trashy behavior made our hero's blood boil, especially since poor Miss Marie was stuck being engaged to a guy she couldn't even stand to talk to. He figured if Marie was stuck marrying someone she didn't love, it might as well be him. He flinched and shook his head, wondering why he was even thinking that, because if he actually tried it, Estasia would totally erase him, so he had to change the subject fast. After a minute of awkward silence, the hero finally breaks the ice by saying the moon looks beautiful, and as the girl shyly calls his name, they both end up staring at the sky in a super old-school but totally sincere confession. She hyped herself up and gave a solid 5, and even though she thought she was super smart, she was dying to know what Rhonda thought of her, so she mentioned her fiancé and got the perfect. Everything went dead silent again, and our hero started stressing, wondering if he just totally killed the vibe. He finally remembered the gift and handed it to Mari to celebrate her recovery, and while she was totally shocked to see the magic stone, he just told her he knew she'd love it. He told her he had to bounce since he still had cleaning to do, and she yelled out a huge thank you as he walked away. She says she's never been happier and promises she'll always have his back. Fast forward a few days, and the Duke says everything is almost wrapped up, so our hero decides to hit him with the same question again. The musicians explained it simply. They've gathered every map and fragment to corner the Marquis of Greenwich, and now they're just one move away from the final showdown. If he tells them the news, it proves the enemy is backed into a corner and about to get way more desperate. The Duke's plan is simple. Don't kill Marie, just snatch her up and force her to marry someone from Greenwich so they can finally make a comeback. He explained that the Greenwich and Estasia families were supposed to get their kids married off, but politics ruined the deal, even though the Greenwiches still clearly wanted Marie, which left our MC totally confused about why they'd try to kill her if they wanted her in the family so bad. The Duke is totally clueless and never planned a wedding, but the Greenwich family is definitely about to snatch Marie for her own safety, and he's the one who gets to announce her fiancé. The Duke just dropped a massive announcement that Randy von Greenwich is the new heir, and even our hero is totally shocked to hear it. It all finally clicked. That total jerk was actually the Greenwich heir and Marie's fiancé, which explains why Lona was being so cryptic before. Because of the massive beef between the Estasia and Greenwich families, this is probably true, but after seeing how Randy acted at the party, it's obvious he's still trying to win Mira over. The Duke warned that kidnappers are lurking everywhere, and since the last hit failed, they might just try to kill her next. He told everyone they need to stay on high alert for at least another month. A while later, they found out that the one who stood before the girls had a brand new job, and when they asked what was up, he told them he was officially a butler who had to follow the strict rules of the Butler Code from now on. Amanda asks what the plan is, and he explains that she'll be the main guard while he stays close as a butler to back her up. But she immediately wonders if he's low. Ron explains that if someone poisons her food, he needs to be right there to stop it, and Mari is honestly just thrilled that he's going to be by her side the whole time. Marie loved the plan. Amanda backed her up instantly, and even the hostess was on board, especially since that double security made Marie feel way safer. Now, with a visit to Tesla's, but after hearing Rhonda, it was obvious this wasn't gonna be a walk in the park. Fast forward 1 week, and Amanda is waiting at the door while Marie is already all dressed up and ready to go. Ron tells the lady her ride is ready, and she smiles, saying he's already acting like a pro butler, and she's totally taking him to Tesla's house. He thanked her and explained Tesla was an old friend, but since the invite felt super sketchy, he did a background check on that Greenwich house and found nothing, so she's totally safe to talk. Marie knew he was a top-tier bodyguard who'd never let anyone touch her. But even though she thought a walk was way too risky right now, he totally disagreed. She actually said the danger is the exact reason she's bailing. If she just hid at home after someone tried to take her out, it would have been a total embarrassment for the Duke's family, so she had to get out there and show everyone she wasn't scared of anything. Ron realized she was a total beast, and then they finally hit the road. Back at Tesla's house, a young girl stares hard at Rhonda and asks if he's really the same guy. Marie gave the nod. Her friend called the hero over, and when he asked what was up, the girl told him she heard he was Marie's personal bodyguard. He confirms it, saying he's pulling double duty as a guard and a butler just to pay the bills. The girl looked over at Mari and asked Rhonda if he was some kind of idiot for not getting it, then told him he better take good care of her. Before long, the whole crew had guards watching their every move. Our hero started to wonder if he really looked that sketchy. Maris asks if Tesla was the one who told him that, and he says yeah, explaining that if his enemy thinks he's a loser, they'll get lazy, which is, she was totally into it but asked if he was just doing his job as a guest, and he actually hesitated for a second before he answered. Out of nowhere, their carriage started shaking like crazy. The girl let out a terrified scream, but he quickly calmed her down and begged her not to leave, all while wondering if they were under attack even though it was dead silent outside. He figured if it was an attack, Amanda and Steele would already be fighting, but the second he peeked out of the carriage, he completely froze. Amanda was just lying there on the ground, and he started shouting her name, totally clueless about what had just happened. Someone was standing right on top of the carriage, throwing down a massive spell. The hero stopped dead in his tracks, feeling like something was totally off. He grabbed the girl and leaped out the second that carriage blew sky high. They gripped a mirror tight and leaped right off the cliff, diving straight down. She cried out to him, and he screamed back for her to hold onto his hand and never let go, no matter what. That poison guy used a shell earlier to make sure they all landed without a scratch. The hero pulls Mari close and asks if she's all right, but she just gives him a confident smile and says that poison magic is actually super useful. He explains that he used a spell to turn poison into a rock-hard shell, a trick he actually came up with while saving a cat from falling off a cliff. She explains the shield only works for 2 or 3 seconds, but suddenly, a lightning bullet comes flying straight at them. He spots it instantly and stops the ball with a spell, using a bullet loaded with some weak poison this time. The bullet vanishes into thin air, and someone up on the hill yells at him to chill out because they need to catch that girl alive. This mysterious guy walks up to Rhonda and says it's been way too long since they last saw each other. Suddenly, it clicks. Our hero has seen this dude before and he's totally shocked that the guy already knows his name. The guy said he'd found out some wild secrets, calling Rhonda a sorceress who uses deadly poison magic. He says it's been almost 1,000 years since a regular person actually mastered poison magic. Turns out that super moody and always grumpy guy Rhonda actually has poison magic. The guy just smirks and asks how he couldn't be happy when his poison magic was born from the pain of the hero's own dad trying to kill him. He lunges at Rhonda, shouting at him to stop holding back and show his real power. Ron's starting to think these guys aren't trying to kill Mari, they want to take her alive. Then he notices that for some weird reason, this guy is actually super interested in him. The hero shields Mari with a wall of poison magic and then baits the villain into chasing him far away. This guy charges straight at Rhonda, covered in crazy bursts of lightning magic. Our hero strikes with lightning speed, but the other guy somehow manages to dodge the hit. He's about to unleash his poison magic, giving the guy a look so cold it sends shivers straight down his spine. The guy backs away from the kid in total shock, laughing because he honestly can't believe what he's seeing. He hurls a knife right at Rhonda, but he dodges it like it's nothing, and the blade slams into the tree with a sharp click. The guy explains that his poison magic is a one-hit kill, so he's definitely not getting close enough to trade blows. Looking at the knife, she realizes it's just like the one the maid used to attack Mari, but it turns out that maid was actually just a pawn following someone else's orders. He realizes there's no way a regular person could ever get their hands on a knife coated in purple dragon poison. Ron swears his rival framed the maid and was planning to attack the mistress, but suddenly, a massive bolt of lightning blasts our hero out of nowhere. Our hero gets seriously hurt and slams into the ground. Maria is totally frozen in shock, and the guy is just hyped that he actually landed the hit. The stranger saw Ron was still breathing and actually gave him props, since almost nobody survives a hit that massive. He says he always makes his victims remember his name before he finishes them off, so he tells them to listen up. He leans in close to Rhonda and whispers his name, Albrecht. He jams a knife against the hero's face and demands he remember his name, making sure that even in the afterlife, everyone knows who finished him off. With her shield totally gone, Mari screams the hero's name and reaches out, but Brett's whole squad locks onto her as he reveals his orders are to capture her alive. He turns to her and says he doesn't care what shape she's in as long as she's still breathing. Then he heads straight over to Mari. Out of nowhere, a massive magic orb pops up right behind the guy. That ball zooms right at Ulbricht, but he ducks just in time as it explodes next to him, barely leaving a scratch. Suddenly, 4 magic orbs zoom right for him, trapping him from every single side. The bullets go boom, and a girl with a gun drops from the sky. She's the one who made those deadly orbs. She shouts a fire spell, and her weapon instantly bursts into flames. It slams right into their breakfast spot, and the ground underneath just caves in. He leaped back in a flash, dodging the explosions and the attack at the same time. Amanda Knight rushes over to Marie to see if she's okay and offers to help her out. She says she's doing just fine and mentions Rhonda, while the knight tells her to distract the enemy so Marie can pass an item to the hero. Amanda hands over the magic healing stone and tells them it saved her life too, but she warns them that it's officially the last one they've got. Marie is listening closely, but Albrecht realizes right then that she should have just stayed put and not moved a muscle. He tells Amanda that if she's so ready to die, he'll help her out so she can be famous in the afterlife, and then he pulls out his sword. The guy shouts his name and instantly charges the knight, telling him to remember it and die. Their weapons slam together with a massive crash. Marie patched Rhonda up, and while the boy was super quick to thank her, she told him the real credit goes to that magic healing stone Amanda gave her. Our hero is totally shocked to see Amanda show up out of nowhere, but he quickly turns his focus back to the crazy battle. The knight blocks the hits with her shield, but the force is still shoving her back, so Rhonda yells for her to get back. She charges straight at the enemy, swinging her weapon while it's still totally on fire. He remembered his deal with Amanda. If a crazy, strong enemy showed up, she'd be the shield while he grabbed Maria and focused only on getting her to safety. She tells him that if she wants to die, he shouldn't even care, but Ron snaps back that there's no way he's just letting her die. Amanda told him to stop doubting her because she's totally locked in, no matter how she feels. She told him that Mari's safety is the only thing that matters, so if he has to, he needs to leave her behind and just go. Ron looks around and realizes they're totally trapped. A massive rock blocks the east, a wild river and an impossible cliff sit to the west, and he can hear a huge fight breaking out to the south. Their only shot at making it out alive is heading straight north. There's a forest right past the bridge, and if they can get there from Mari, they'll finally be able to hide and escape. The bridge is way too far away, and if they get spotted, those fast enemies will catch up to them in a heartbeat. They're out of options, so Ron asks Marie if she can run, and she tells him she's totally got this. He tells her that the second he gives the signal, she's got to sprint for the bridge with everything she's got. He promises to stay right behind her no matter what, and tells her to just keep running forward. So Mario listens and bolts ahead without looking back. Amanda's fighting like crazy and screams at Rhonda to stop messing around and just get out of there. She summons a fireball and blasts it right at him, but he's way too fast and just steps out of the way. The guy wonders if she's finally out of moves since he's already seen this trick before. Ron and Mari are booking it toward the bridge while that massive wave of destruction is right on their heels. "Mari, this guy is swinging a sword." The guy spots her and yells out, but Ron suddenly pops up behind Albrecht, bragging that he'll catch anyone who gets close, no matter how fast they are. Our hero hits the bad guy with some super deadly poison. The enemy crashes to the dirt, and Ron's just hyped that he finally landed a solid blow. Marie was almost at the bridge when a huge bolt of lightning suddenly blasted it to pieces, leaving her frozen in shock as it crumbled right before her eyes. Out of nowhere, Ron spots Albrecht standing right on the bridge beam. Our hero is totally losing it because that guy is still moving even though he definitely just pumped him full of poison. He explains that if you're ever going up against a poison mage, you've got to have a magic stone to block all that toxic stuff. Ron remembers how that guy kept warning him to stay away from fighting up close. Albrecht explains that's just how the tech works, and right on cue, a bolt of lightning smashes into the rock. Out of nowhere, a giant boulder slams down right between Amanda and the heroes. The guy tells Mari and Rhonda they're totally cornered and even the darkness won't save them now. He flashes a cocky grin and says it's finally time to end this whole thing. Albrecht says he always finishes his work in 5 minutes flat, because taking any longer just feels wrong to him. He shouts that there's only 30 seconds left on the clock, giving Rhonda props for making him use every single moment. The guy yells that the hero's journey ends right here, calling down a massive lightning bolt and a crazy sonic blast. Ron shuts down the attack by whipping out some insane purple dragon poison magic. Bricht is totally hyped watching the dragon's poison soak up the lightning, and he's clearly loving the show. Rhonda is totally keeping that dragon in check right now. After soaking up all that lightning, the poison dragon struts forward totally confident, but the hero isn't even scared. He's actually hyped because he's watching legendary magic from 1,000 years ago. The dragon snatches Albrecht, and they both go crashing down into the dark pit. Ree and a totally wiped-out Rhonda are actually super hyped about this. He tells her to stay put while he checks the damage himself because the collapse made everything way too risky, and she just begs him to watch his back. The kid looks down and realizes that even if the guy survives, he's still never getting out of there. He admits Brecht is a super dangerous mercenary, and if Grivnici is really behind this, then Mari is in way more danger than they thought. Suddenly, Brecht leaps onto a boulder and shouts that overthinking his spot and trying to bait the dragon is just a total waste of time. Ron's totally caught off guard by how his opponent looks, but he still talks trash and says the hero isn't impressive at all. A wild spell from the Island of Lightning just zapped every single breakfast. Our hero realizes he's totally out of magic, and now the enemy is ready to strike back. Mary dives right in front of Ron to shield him from the blow. Just as the lightning is about to blast them, the little pouch around the girl's neck starts glowing like crazy. Our hero snaps his eyes open and realizes he's in a totally strange place with no clue how he ended up there. Right in front of him was a massive forest filled with giant mushrooms. Ron gets back and calls out for Mari, but he freezes when he sees her lying on the ground with ripped clothes and her eyes shut. He calls out to her. She wakes up totally relieved he's okay, but he turns bright red and points at her outfit. A branch snags her skirt and rips it, leaving her totally confused as she awkwardly tries to cover her legs. Rand's left, wondering what could have possibly brought them to this mysterious spot. He remembers that right as Albrecht's attack was about to land, Marie's wallet suddenly started glowing. The hero wonders what's inside the wallet, and she tells him it's a magic stone Ron gave her, but the second she opens it, she's hit with a massive surprise. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a totally busted stone. The kid swears that even though the treasure is in pieces, it's definitely the same stone he gave away. Mary realized the stone actually worked when they suddenly found themselves standing right in the middle of a massive forest. She explains that her stone is basically a rare teleportation crystal that even her dad couldn't find, leaving Ron totally floored by how insanely valuable it actually is. He's totally stumped on how this stone even ended up at such a sketchy stall. Mary gives a little laugh and tells Ron he's totally come through for her again. Blushing a bit, our hero admits she's the one who saved him this time, then jokes that Amanda is totally going to kill him when they get home. He tells Maria to get out of there, but she screams a warning because a tree is already crashing down right behind him. The shot hits and the poison kicks in right away, killing the whole tree on the spot. She was totally ready for that lightning-fast strike, and the hero realized he could win this solo as long as the enemy didn't start healing. Marie reveals this creepy tree is actually Trent, a legendary forest killer, and the boy is totally blown away by how much she knows about monsters. She points out that what's cool changes depending on where you live, and honestly, it's a total struggle. She says this is happening all over the continent, and Ron knows they've got to keep moving. The hero decides to charge in first to take on the monsters alone, telling Mari to just stay behind him and keep safe, and she totally agrees to follow his lead. As they're walking, he asks if she's doing okay, and even though she smiles and says she's fine, he can totally tell she's acting super weird. He's glad they're in the forest because monsters here almost never attack in packs. Poison magic is actually super weak against a whole crowd of enemies, but luckily, this forest is packed with places to hide if things get too crazy. Ron and Mari spot a weird fruit they've never seen before, and while Ron's already thinking about eating it, Mari's totally sketched out because those bright colors usually mean it. Our hero takes a big bite and it's a little sour, but he's loving how juicy it is, so he tries to share it with the girl and she just screams, "No!" Ron keeps saying the forest's water balance is a huge deal, but the girl still isn't totally sold on the idea. He promises to neutralize any poison in a heartbeat, noticing how she's struggling to swallow because she's just so incredibly thirsty. Mari agrees and chomps down on the fruit, while the hero instantly fires off an antidote spell to stop the poison from kicking in. She realizes the fruit is super juicy and delicious, and she's totally loving it. She was right in the middle of chewing when the antidote magic started glowing all over again. He tells her that even if the poison is gone, eating will still hurt like crazy, but Marie says she can handle the pain, so the hero suggests a totally different plan. She's totally shocked when she realizes she can finally eat without any pain. She asks what Ron just did, and he tells her he used a spell called microvenom. He explains that taking tiny doses of poison actually turns it into medicine, making it a crazy kind of healing magic that fights off toxins. Mari says the fruit is totally safe now and immediately asks for another one. Later, they're trekking through some super tall grass where you can't see a thing, when suddenly, a massive wasp flies right out at them. Rom throws up a wall of poison to block the girl and warns Marie that this Class B soldier's bite will literally paralyze you for hours. He brags about being a poison expert, but she just smiles and says her bee warriors aren't afraid of a little toxic magic. She warns them that these monsters hunt in huge packs, and right on cue, a massive swarm of bees starts charging straight at them. Rona was totally freaked out when a pack of monsters suddenly appeared right in front of him. Our hero taps into the poison ball's magic to soak his enemies in deadly toxins, while Mari spots a fight behind the wall and warns Rhonda exactly where the monsters are about to strike. Our hero is desperately swinging at the bees, but then a massive new swarm shows up and swallows everything in sight. He spots one of the monsters about to fly straight for Mari. The kid drops the bee in a heartbeat, but he's totally surrounded and running out of time. He knows his poison magic could wipe them all out, but he needs a second to charge. Our hero keeps spamming that weakening poison, and even though it's not super strong, he can fire it off so fast that it actually becomes his best weapon in the fight. He was doing everything to keep Marie safe, but even his ultimate magic couldn't stop that many monsters at once. Ron tries to act tough to scare the bees, but they don't care at all and just keep swarming closer. The hero blasts them back with a magic wave and the monsters are totally wiped out. He blasts them with that weakening poison again, but he spots a few bees that actually manage to slip right through. The bad guys are charging straight for Mari, but she's ready to stand her ground and fight back. She triggers a massive explosion to supercharge her wind magic. Monsters are getting blown to pieces, and Rhonda is totally hyped as she cheers for the girl. Out of nowhere, one of the bees tags Mari right on the arm, making her scream her head off. He's terrified that if the poison freezes her up, those monsters will pounce and end them both right then and there. She blasted V with her wind magic, sending him flying just like a bullet. Ron rushes over to the woman and shouts that he'll stop the poison, but she's totally shocked when she sees something weird happening to his face. The kid's face is a total swollen mess, but Mari notices the poison isn't actually working because he already got a tiny dose of it from eating that fruit earlier. She's stoked that poisonous monsters don't scare them anymore, but Ron admits he's still not trying to run into those bee warriors. They spent 4 more days and a night hiding in their forest shelter, while the hero kept a sharp lookout and checked if Marie was getting cold. The girl just shrugs it off and says she's doing totally fine. Ron thinks the days are still okay, but the nights are getting straight up freezing. He looks at her and wonders if she's totally out of her element, reminding her that as the Duke of Estasia's only daughter, she's been super sheltered and has never actually faced. For 4 whole days, she barely survived by eating poisonous berries, getting wrecked by bee stings, and sleeping on the freezing ground without even a blanket. Our hero is totally blown away by how she never complains, so he tells her to stop holding back and just let out every single bottled-up emotion since they're finally alone. Mari actually admits she's having a total blast. Rhonda's totally shocked and asks how they can even smile when nobody knows when they'll finally get out of this forest. She's super shy and wants to admit that he's the exact reason her face is turning bright red. She flips her story real quick, laughs awkwardly, and admits she's never dealt with anything like this before. Our hero gives a nervous laugh and finally admits that Mari is seriously the real deal. He tells her to let him know the second anything goes wrong so she doesn't have to stress, and she's honestly so thankful he's looking out for her. Mari is still shivering like crazy, so Rhonda notices and tosses his jacket over her shoulders. She blushed hard and thanked him, feeling a warmth that made her think the hero was finally passing his kindness right over to her. He scans the area to make sure no monsters are lurking nearby. Mary gives the hero's sleeve a quick tug and calls out to him, making him spin around in total shock to look her right in the eyes. They both freeze up and just lock eyes for a split second. Ron just turns away and tells everyone to get some sleep while he stays outside to keep watch for a bit. Even though she's totally unhinged, she still does exactly what he says. He looks completely heartbroken, but he's still trying to lie to himself and say he made the right call. He looks up at the sky, but the stars are already starting to go all blurry. After weeks of wandering through the woods, Ron and Marie finally took a breather to chow down on some roasted meat. The hero is stoked to hear that, and the girl grins as she says she always heard killer bear meat was delicious, and now she's finally proved it herself. He gives her a massive thank you for being such a beast with her fire magic. The guy is totally shocked that Marie can use 2 types of magic at once, but she tells him her fire skills are actually just beginner level. Ron explains that because of this skill, they finally get to chow down on some roasted meat. As they keep moving, our hero is seriously stressed about escaping the forest, because Mari is totally wiped out, and they need to find an exit fast. A boy and a girl spot a massive bear, and the beast starts charging right at them looking super dangerous. Ron's about to unleash some serious magic, so he tells Mari to back up a bit. After chowing down on bear meat, the boy hurls a super deadly poisoned bullet right at the monster. That fire bear is hanging on by a thread, but the hero suddenly asks the girl if she heard any voices hiding behind the monster's roar. They scan the area, trying their hardest to catch even the tiniest sound. Maria says she still hears those voices, but she can't understand a single word they're saying. She tells him to go check it out, but Ron warns her to stay sharp since they don't know if these strangers are friendly. Then she points up and says she hears voices coming from above. He's super worried that he's about to deal with another mercenary just like Albrecht. Maria is totally hyped because they're finally meeting other people in a few weeks, and she is not about to miss out on this chance. Ron sees she looks totally wiped out and decides it's worth the risk to go up and talk to her. He's totally down for the plan and climbs all the way to the very top. He tells Maria to stay hidden while he goes ahead to make sure the coast is clear. He spots a massive monster charging straight for a girl. Ron takes a second to see if he can trust this stranger before firing off a spell to back her up. He knows that if he fires a poison bullet from here, the toxic stuff could spread and hurt the girl. But they're way too far away to actually reach them. The monster is inches away from her, and since he's out of options, he has to gamble everything on one shot with that poison bullet. Out of nowhere, Mari pops up and blasts them with a massive ball of wind magic. Ron looks at her totally stunned, and right then, the monster lunges straight for them. The girl tells Ron he's got to leave her behind and keep going alone. He hurls a deadly poison bullet straight at the beast. That armored bear's health bar just hit 0 and he's totally finished. Rhonda and Marie scrambled over to the hurt girl, asking if she was okay and telling her she didn't have to be scared anymore. The stranger is shaking with fear as she checks if it's actually real. But right then, the heroes notice her long, pointy ears. It pops up in front of them again and thanks them for all their help. The elf introduces herself as Kutunar, Aha, Sai Salfon, and Desaria, thanking them again for saving her life when things were looking really bad. Ron can't even say her name right, so he just asks if he can call her Cute instead. The hero spots her pointy ears and asks if she's an elf, and she just smiles and nods to confirm that she really is one. Maria's super hyped and says meeting an elf in the forest is a total honor, but Cut gets all awkward and asks if they even think they're human. Ron gives her a warm reply while realizing she's still a total mystery to him, so he decides to keep her real name, Marie, a secret for now. He introduces Mari to the crew, and she blushes hard while explaining that she and her friend were just traveling when they hit a trap and ended up stuck in these woods. The elf asks why her face is suddenly bright red, while Ron starts panicking that Mary might be coming down with a fever. She says she's fine, but inside she's totally losing it because he just dropped the formal act and used her name, acting so casual that it feels like they're way more than just friends, maybe even in love. Maria's got Kuta on her mind but doesn't even know why she said that, so she quickly switches gears and starts talking about elf ears. Ron knows elves are out there, but they're super hard to find, and his friend says even the kingdom's most powerful leaders have no clue where they're hiding. Coot explains that her people almost never step foot outside the elven lands. He asks her why that monster was only going after her. The elf girl hesitates for a second before asking to hear her story, and the girl explains that the elves are currently out hunting in the village right by the World Tree. Mari explains that elves are the legendary hunters of the World Tree, and Coot agrees, saying you aren't officially an adult until you can hunt all by yourself. Coot admits she's never actually hunted by herself, even though kids way younger than her are already legendary hunters. Now the younger kids keep making fun of her while the adults just glare at her with total judgment. Ron tells her he totally gets it since he's always been the family screw-up, even though Maria keeps trying to cut him off. The elf cheers the girl up and tells her she's still dreaming of becoming the World Tree's huntress as fast as she can. She made up her mind right then. She wasn't going back to the village until she finally learned how to hunt all on her own. The second she stepped past the barrier, she got jumped, and now she feels like a total failure. Maria takes back what she said and admits that Kutai's got some serious guts. The elf thanks the girl and asks if there's any way she can pay them back to show how thankful she is. Marie asks Ron if elves are the real bosses of the forest, and he gives her a serious nod to let her know it's true. They turn to Kuta and beg him to show them the way out of this massive forest. She tells them that if that's all they need, she can totally lead the way. Ron swears that having an elf lead them through the woods is the absolute best way to find their path. Kutai tells the hero he can ask her literally anything about the forest, and the boy is super grateful for the chance. He pointed his finger and said he wanted to go that way, but the elf warned him they'd get totally lost in the deep woods. Mari spots them getting way too close and gets totally salty, complaining that something is definitely not right here. The squirrel zips through the trees and swings on vines, landing right on a massive mushroom and shouting for Rhonda and Marie to catch up. The hero tries to slow the elf down because she's sprinting way too fast, but even though Mari is totally out of breath, she just smiles and promises she won't fall behind. As soon as they hit the ground after that wild mushroom jump, Coot says it's finally time for a breather. Rhonda's exhausted and freaking out, wondering how much longer they'll be stuck wandering this forest before they finally find a way out. The elf girl says at this pace they'll be out of there in just a few days, and the guy is so hyped he can't stop thanking her. Suddenly, the hero realizes he's wandered way too deep into the middle of the forest. He hands Mari some fruit and tells her they're seriously lucky to have run into Kutai. The elf is totally shocked she's so worn out, but she just smiles and says she'll be good as new after a quick rest. Ron points out that humans aren't used to walking through the woods like elves, so Kuta suggests they take a quick break. She reaches her hand out and starts calling out to the spirits. Suddenly, this weird little seed pops up right in the middle of her hand. Mari's totally lost on which spirits the elf is calling out to, and just then, a seed slips right out of Kuta's hand and hits the ground. A tiny winged creature pops out of the seed, revealing itself as the earth spirit, and Rag, Titan, and Cut immediately ask it for help. The elf pumps his earth magic into the trees, making the branches instantly twist together into a super comfy hammock. Mari and Ron are totally stunned by Cute's work and give her huge props, while Ron wonders if she used actual magic to pull it off. The elf says she just asked the spirits for help, and the hero is totally shocked because he can't see them at all, figuring only elves have that special power. Maria is totally geeking out because she's finally seeing spirit art for the first time in her life. Now our hero is wondering if every other elf out there can do the same wild stuff as Kuta. The elf says they totally can, and honestly, they're way better at it than she is. Ron remembers how everyone was totally obsessed with Felix and his insane magic powers. He asks Kuta if she's down to take on the forest monsters and come out on top. This elf is dead set on taking down the armored bear that the whole village is terrified of and bringing its head back as a trophy. They share a super awkward look, and Rhonda admits she was being a bit harsh, but she's still dead set on getting stronger. Our hero announces that starting tomorrow, they're done running and are finally fighting back, and Coot is so hyped he calls him teacher, which totally catches Mari off guard. Rond notices the elf looking totally unsure and asks what her magic can do, explaining that having raw power is useless if you don't know how to use it the right way. Maria adds that if you really know what your partner can do, you guys can come up with a totally insane plan together. He takes a second to think and finally unleashes his new move right as a massive chunk of ground comes crashing down. She suddenly yanks him into the air, and right then, you can really see just how high up they are. Rond was totally shocked to realize she could actually control the earth. Kutu shows off his magic as a massive sharp rock spikes out of the ground, ready to strike. Mari points out how insane the elf's earth magic is, and the hero totally agrees. She says the earth spear looks sick, but it's way too slow and super easy to dodge. This thing keeps blowing everyone's minds, chucking rocks at the massive earth spear until it completely shatters into pieces. Maria can tell these stones pack a punch, but even though they're fast, they take way longer to set up than a basic spear. He explains that earth magic takes a while to charge up, and Cute totally agrees with him. Suddenly, Ron realized something huge. This elf is actually way stronger than he looks. Cutie eventually finds a bear in armor and tries to challenge it, but before he can even finish his sentence, the beast lets out a massive roar and starts growing huge right in front of him. He charges right at her, but she stays totally chill and uses her magic to blast sharp rocks straight into the bear's face. The creature screams for the spirit's help, and suddenly vines wrap around the beast, sprouting right through its tough armor. The plants suddenly power up and sprout sharp thorns that tear right into the bear. But this guy isn't backing down, so he rips those plants right out of the dirt and charges straight for the elf. Out of nowhere, Kutai yanks the ground right out from under the beast, sending it crashing straight into the pits he just made. The second that bear hit the ground, sharp stone spears blasted out of the pit and skewered it completely. She's totally hyped that she actually handled him, and right then, Rond and Mari jump out of the bushes to cheer her on. The hero swears he actually saw her take down a massive armored bear all by herself. Yads finds out that Kutek is finally cleared to become a hunter for the World Tree. She flashes him a quick grin and starts giggling under her breath. They totally ditched the bear meat and kept moving forward on their journey. Ron remembers Kuta talking about the Forest of Illusions, and that's the exact same name the elves use for this place. Mary promised that if this really is Nar Forest, there's no way they're getting lost on the way out. One wrong move and you're gonna end up straight in Edward's Market. Our hero is caught off guard and asks if the other elves know more about the human lands, so Kuti admits she only knows one path while others in her village are total experts. Ram realized Kate's path was actually a total death trap, so he was desperate to find some real answers in the elf village. Mary realized their elf was super rare because most elves hate humans and will straight up attack anyone who gets near their village, and the boy totally agreed. Kat figures that if Ron goes solo, maybe everything will actually be okay. While they're heading to the elf village, the hero turns to the elf and asks if Mary is actually going to be okay. Kutarashir points out that this earth fortress built by spirits is insanely tough, and Ron backs him up, saying his partner's magic is literally made for defense and support. The elf admitted that mastering these skills was a total game changer, and now she's just hoping the villagers will finally give her some respect. They reach the edge of the peak and can see the villages below, but she suddenly gets totally freaked out by what she sees. She looks out and sees the whole village is totally wrecked, with everything burned to the ground. It zoomed through the village until a black house suddenly appeared out of nowhere, leaving Rond totally stunned and thinking a monster attack was happening. Kuthi says it's probably a bear demon since that monster was just spotted lurking in the forest. She explains that this demon bear is making all the local bears go totally wild, and now even the elves can't stop them. But then someone suddenly screams out, demanding to know what she's doing there. One of the elves got totally annoyed, complaining that she'd barely left the village and was already dragging a human back right when things were getting bad. The elves are trying to kick Rondo out and have officially banned him from ever stepping foot on their land again. Cut stops them right there, explaining that the hero actually saved her life. Then she shows off the armored bear's head and admits she only got it because of Ron's pro tips. The elf spots the animal head and calls her a total liar, yelling that even if she's the elder's daughter, she shouldn't have brought a random stranger into their tribe. Our hero's jaw dropped when he realized Kate was the elder's daughter, and suddenly her dad, a massive elf, was looming right behind him. He asks Rhonda if he touched his daughter, or else he says he's gonna feel sick, and the scared kid quickly says no. He looks the elder right in the eye and confesses he's already got a special someone. The elf dad pulls his daughter into a massive hug, telling her he missed her like crazy and apologizing for just vanishing without a word. Her dad asks how she's doing, and even though she says she's fine, she's actually super worried about what's going to happen to the village. He heads back to Rhonda and tells her he finally chilled out once he realized he actually has someone he loves. The old man introduces himself as Ul and tells them to just call him that. He explains that monsters just raided the place, so now everyone is totally on edge whenever a stranger shows up. The guy tells them to move to a house on the edge of the village, and he says if Rhonda has a friend she wants to bring, they can all go together so he can finally hear their story. After hearing the whole story, the elf steps up and says he knows exactly where to go and which spots they definitely shouldn't mess with. He warns them the kingdom is totally split, and taking a wrong turn could land them in huge trouble on the way back. The elder makes a deal. He'll lead them out of the forest safely if they help the elves take down that demonic bear. If these monster bears are acting this crazy, it means a demonic bear is riling them up, and there's no way the forest guardians are letting that slide. He heads back to Rhonda and drops the truth that his magic isn't even real. Maria's totally shocked the elves are asking a human for help, but the elder says they wouldn't have come to her if she was just some random person. He says that normally, anyone Kuta drags in is dead meat right away, so he asks Marie if she knows why this time was any different. The guy spots a spirit chilling on Rhonda's head and tells her she's officially under their protection. The hero is totally lost, so the old man explains that spirits have always loved people with weird non-magic powers, and to the elves, these guys are a massive deal. When the villagers saw all those spirits crowding around the kid, they finally realized he was actually a good guy. Ron asks Kutut if she spotted any ghosts at his place too. Mary explains that's why she was so sure Ron would be okay, and the elf says sorry for leaving her all by herself. She tells him to team up with Ul and fight together, but the hero thinks it's way too dangerous and decides to take on the monsters all by himself. She finally admits she's sick of waiting all by herself and decides she's tagging along. Ron warns her that they have no clue what other monsters are lurking nearby, and Mari remembers that wild battle they just had with the bee warriors. She says poison magic is weak against a huge crowd, so her wind magic is going to be way more useful here. The girl turns to the elder and asks how they're actually going to hunt that monster down. Ol explains that the elves split into small squads of 3 or 4 to hunt or guard the village, and he invites Ron and Mari to join the hunting team. He explains that getting along with the elves won't be easy, so he suggests Mari lead the team as a free squad, and she's totally down for it. The old man says Zilla's squad is heading out with the second group soon, so it's the perfect chance to tag along and ask her about all the monsters they're gonna face. Marion Rondon runs into a squad of elves with 3 hunters, and one of them is totally ticked off that humans are tagging along. He tells the couple that those naked monsters have gotten way stronger and warns them to watch their backs. The elf is already geared up to leave and asks Ron where he's headed, but Ron decides to tag along because he's dying to see how elves actually take down monsters. Zill couldn't care less and tells the guy to do whatever he wants, which totally ticks off Cut. But Rond is just relieved they finally got an answer. Our hero is stunned the owl sent his own daughter on a hunting party, but the elf explains that her dad doesn't give family any special treatment. Coot's convinced her dad is just freaking out and that the whole situation is totally in his head. Mari wants to wipe out the monsters right now so the owl can finally chill, and Ran is totally on board. The group lets Rora jump into action, and the elf spots Zill's team already clashing with the monsters. 3 bears decked out in heavy armor are marching straight for the elves. Ronde stares at the massive monsters in a total panic and asks Kutai if they're going to help, but she just stays cool and says the hunters can handle beasts like this no problem. One elf calls on a spirit and blasts a massive whirlwind straight at the bad guys, and just like that, the attack slices one of the bear's paws right off. Rory's jaw drops because that wind blast was way more powerful than anything she could ever pull off. Then another elf jumps in and uses spirit-powered water magic to blast the monster right through the eye. She takes control of the water and traps his head in a bubble, leaving him gasping for air as he starts to suffocate. Zill is already gearing up to take down the very last bear. He tells the guy to keep an eye on the elf fight while he gets ready to unleash some fire magic. A massive blast of fire launched the bear into the sky and completely swallowed it in flames. The monster crashed to the ground and burned into a pile of ash as Zill looked over at Rhonda with a huge grin. The dog starts hyping up the elf, and Mari chimes in that it's no wonder Zilla is known as a total genius with spirit magic. The elf snaps that humans aren't cut out for this and orders them to get out of the forest right now. Ron realizes this is how elf warriors actually fight using spirit magic, and their destructive power is honestly on a whole other level. He realizes that if a demon bear can wreck elves this strong, then its power is seriously scary.